To bring in our colleague, First Edition host and former US correspondent, covered US elections, three of them in fact. Pete Stefanovic with me in the studio. Pete, great to see you. We've got live pictures coming to us from Mar-a-Lago, Florida, where Donald Trump's going to speak in the next few hours. He's hoping to use this as a launch into his run for 2024, isn't he?
Isn't it amazing, Kieran, that so much of these midterms is a referendum on Joe Biden's presidency, but here we are talking about Donald Trump. We're talking about the other guy. He's still soaking up all of the airtime 24/7. Everyone's wondering, hey, what's Donald Trump going to do? It's very likely that he's going to run. I mean, I've thought about this for ever since he lost a couple of years ago. He'll be back. And he will be back. He'll announce it again. And who's going to stand in his way? Ron DeSantis, maybe, but suggestions are that Donald Trump will say, hey, why don't you just bide your time and sit it out for 4 years and come back then? But who else is going to oppose him? I can't see anyone opposing him.
And we'll get to those pictures and that speech live when Donald Trump speaks, because you cannot miss.
No.
At this stage, he's hoping there's some momentum that can help him on this red wave, potentially into another run. But as you said, you mentioned Ron DeSantis. He's already sizing him up. He's already calling him by names.
Sanctimonious. It's not a bad one by his standards too.
It's pretty good. But the dilemma here, and you know this, having covered a number of US elections, is the Republican wave might happen today, but that does not mean by any stretch a win in 2024.
No.
Because once you get that behaviour of blocking in Congress and so on, and that wheel potentially turns again.
Well, I mean, Barack Obama, there was a swing against him after his first term. I mean, it's fairly common that there is a swing against the incumbent. In fact, I think there's only two occasions where an incumbent has actually built on their popularity, one being Bill Clinton, the other being George W. Bush. I'm pretty sure that's right. So it's fairly rare that that would happen. So everyone's expecting that there would be a move against Joe Biden, but I'm not sure it's going to be as significant as this time, because according to realclearpolitics.com, which is more of a central pollster, they've got, according to the House anyway, that the Republicans could pick up something in excess of 30 or 40 seats. So there's that red wave there. And it also points to about 3 pickups in the Senate. So, they only need 1. In the Senate, and that would be enough to get them there, which is why it's interesting that Annalise is in a state like Georgia, where Herschel Walker, according to polls at the moment, she did say that there's been a recent dip, but it looks as though he might just have the numbers to get over the line, despite him being such a divisive figure, particularly on that topic of abortion.
Incredible, because so much of this comes down to that issue of turnout. Unlike our elections, US elections are not compulsory, and if there isn't something driving young voters out, like Mick Mulvaney was talking about some exit polls that he had seen. He was with Laura a bit earlier, and he's suggesting that the voting demographic seems to be older at these midterms than, say, the last presidential race. And if that's the case, that should favour Republicans.
And also the key issue here, and I'm sure you would agree, for people in the United States right now is the economy. Inflation is running at 40-year highs. You've got gas prices at the moment that are out of control. As you know, world politics, people tend to vote with their pockets. You'll find that the key issues that the Democrats are choosing to run at the moment, for the most part, is abortion, following Roe v. Wade. It's also, democracy being at stake, Joe Biden talking about it being the battle for the soul of America, and also crime. They appear to be kind of crab walking away from the economy at the moment because they know that it doesn't reflect well on them, so they can't argue about the strength. But that's what the Republicans are using, and for the most part, that's working, because people, as we know, they vote for whoever's going to be more beneficial to how much money they've got in the bank.
Exactly, and that's a mobilising effect in terms of getting people to the ballot box, which is all important. It'll be interesting to see now with Biden's second term. The fact is second half of his first term, he remains commander-in-chief. He still has all the defence and strategic powers of a president, those executive powers. So while people talk about a lame duck, they're not entirely lame duck in that sense, because there are still enormous powers that the president has out of the White House.
He can still sign executive orders. He can still do that, but for the most part, his platform will just run into roadblocks everywhere. And if the Republicans are in control of both houses, well, then they'll just start winding back whatever Biden's done in the first 2 years. And then you've got the topic, and we've been talking about this morning as well, of impeachment. Because it's become a political plaything now, impeachments, right? Because it's a fairly common thing. Donald Trump had 2 of them, but they will target Biden, whether it's Hunter Biden or whether it's the Afghanistan exit or whether it's the border wars at the moment. I mean, they'll go after him on so many different topics because they can. And so if that's the problem. If he loses both houses, then it's just going to be a painful final 2 years, and that will affect his legacy.
And that issue of the debt ceiling, which seems to come up whenever the other side of politics has control of Congress, which again raises the whole spectre of dysfunction on Capitol Hill. We spoke about Donald Trump for 2024. When you look at Biden, 79 years of age, hardly convincing as a leader. It's hard to fathom that the Democratic Party does not have any succession coming through. Well, because you look at this scenario now, and most of the analysts that you and I speak to say, well, Biden's the favourite to run for the Democratic Party again. But I know that the first-term president normally has the right to choose. But how on earth do they not have some sort of succession with a credible younger alternative?
Yeah, well, I think that probably would have been pinning their hopes to Kamala Harris. But, you know, being a vice president, you know, it's more a symbolic thing. You don't have that many jobs other than, you know, helping out in the Senate when they're locked 50-50. So she's got the deciding vote there. But one of her key jobs was to sort out the border and the issue of migrants. And she's hardly been visible on that. And so that's why a lot of people have turned against her. And so people believe, well, she's not going to be the answer at all. Because she often gives these long-winded, rambling, nonsensical responses to questions as well, similar to what Joe Biden does. So I think that's kind of put her on the back burner as well, amongst a few other issues. Peter Buttigieg, possible contender, young, got good history. He's gay though, so you know, is Middle America ready for that? We spoke about this prior. We thought that maybe Middle America wouldn't be ready for Barack Obama, but they were. So maybe there's something there in a couple of years' time.
It's funny, isn't it? We go from one election already looking to the next, but that's the way the US works.
That's what this is about. Yeah, it's, as Annalise pointed out a few times this morning, you know, America, it feels like it's constantly in an election cycle. And just on that point that you were talking about, the debt ceiling, what's going to be interesting if the Republicans get both houses is the issue of the Ukraine war and how much more money America wants to tip into it. Because more and more people, politicians, particularly on the red side, are saying, hey, we've got our own issues at home now. We can't keep sending billions of dollars over to Ukraine when there doesn't seem to be a thirst, from Zelensky's point of view anyway, to try and get some kind of response or some kind of pause on the war to stop money going out the door.